Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Race Myers, and welcome to our directionH Private Association Doctor and Doctor Informational Call. Today we have Dr. Wilson, the co-founder and formulator of directionH, with us, as well as myself, and we're going to be discussing our newest nutrient product, Carb Control. And if you remember back to one of our previous calls, we were talking about feeling good or feeling bad. It's a choice. Well, sometimes the food we eat actually starts that process of how our emotions are going to be triggered throughout the day. So today what we'd like to do is really going to look at one of the issues, one of the situations we've seen a lot of our members working through, and that's the issue of carbs and carbohydrates, more specifically the starches and sugar. So Dr. Wilson, if you could give us a little background information about what we're looking at, and then I'd like to come back and just talk about some of the experiences our members had going through the trials for this product.
So carbohydrates, it's in the news. Society is understanding that it does not contribute to well-being and health. And how do we know this? What is the hard evidence that we can look around and see that it's not working well? Well, right now in our country, 75% of our population is overweight. And the largest demographic in our population is the obese. That statistic directly correlates to the level of carbohydrate consumption in our country. So at directionH, our foundational anchor, our center point, we call the design. What is the design? It's how things are put together and how they work. Another anchor we have is that we let reality be our greatest communicator. What does that mean? It means we can see what happens. It's the science of reality. It's how it works and the responses. There's a feedback loop that every time you do something, it creates a result. You watch what happens when you take the actions, and that's the results we have. So what about carbohydrates? If you look through the animal kingdom, there is no mammal, zero, that lives on a high carbohydrate diet. Whether it be starches, whole grains, fruit, they all have those that do eat carbohydrates have a real mix in their diet. And it's not predominantly processed carbohydrates, nor is it the new kinds of fruits that are grown with excess sweetness. What happens when we eat carbohydrates is that the body has to deal with them immediately. It has been said that carbohydrates are a preferred fuel source. Why would they be a preferred fuel source? Well, if we take all the sugar out of our 5 liters of blood, it's only 1 teaspoon. In 1 slice of bread, there's 3 teaspoons of sugar in the form of starch. In an apple, there's 3 teaspoons of sugar, or 4 in a larger size apple. That's 4 times the amount of sugar going into your bloodstream. And they say, well, if you eat whole foods, then it goes in more slowly. It doesn't matter the time span or the transit time or the glycemic index. All carbohydrates above 5 grams or 1 teaspoon in your bloodstream are toxic. If you have a teaspoon and a half in your bloodstream over an extended period of time, that's called diabetes. The resultant effects of diabetes are accelerated degeneration due to oxidation. Oxidation is another word for toxicity in the body. So carbohydrates are toxic. So what does the body do when it gets confronted, when it becomes exposed to a toxin? It has to deal with it. It has to get rid of it. What is the most expedient way to get rid of it? Well, it's like if you have soil, dirt in a dump site where maybe some oil has leaked into it. What do? They burn it. They incinerate it. That's how you clean it up. You eliminate it by burning it. And that's the same thing your body does. It quickly consumes the carbohydrates by burning it. The other thing it does is it has an emergency response reaction where it secretes lots of insulin and drives it out of your bloodstream. So what's that result in? Well, as you drive nutrients out of your bloodstream, because the body must have a constant supply of fuel available at all times in the bloodstream, when you drive it out of the bloodstream, now you no longer have the fuel available. And so the blood sugar drops. And not only does the blood sugar drop, but insulin takes everything out of your bloodstream. Proteins, fats, everything else goes into storage. And so now their reserves in your blood are low, and it signals you, and so you must go seek more fuel. When you seek more fuel, because it is life-sustaining, it is life-enhancing to feed your system, your body gives you a reward for good work, because now you're providing nutrients. This reward for good work is a sensation of pleasure. So now you eat carbohydrates and you feel good again for a period of time, for 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, and then you repeat that cycle over and over. With that cycle comes the anxiety of survival and the reward for doing good work, the anxiety of survival reward. So on a daily basis, you're just up and down, up and down. And that's how it distorts the pleasure pathways. And in our society now, as you look around, you see that this challenge, this programming that's taking place, is now at a very high pace. That's why 75% of our country now is overweight. And the overweight is a very generous measure. What I mean by generous, a lady that's 5'8" would have to weigh almost 180 pounds to be considered overweight. And at that ratio, 75% of our population is beyond it. What's that say for our country? What's that say for us? Well, we're not here to judge others or to criticize for what's going on. We understand these pleasure pathways are very dominant in our systems. They're meant to be a reward. We understand that. At directionH, we're here to be part of a solution. In that regard, I have formulated Carb Control. Now, Carb Control is like no other product that I know of has ever existed. And what it does is it goes into the same pathways, the pleasure-reward pathways, and it communicates to your system that everything is fine. It communicates to your system that everything is on board, everything is stable. So now you no longer have the cravings. You no longer have the desires. It's not driving you through pleasure-reward anxiety pathways to take action and continual action. So that's a little bit of the background. We could go into science at some other point. We could talk about the pathways. We could talk about neurotransmitters. We could talk about the more in-depth elements, but that's the overview of how it works. And it's very satisfying to see that people are able to move forward with their decisions, but it is a decision that needs to be made. So with that, Dr. Myers?
Well, I just wanted to come up with, just kind of bring another little perspective. That is that what we've noticed too, and what I've noticed when I patients in my practice, is that when people go on the Direction Lean program, the combination of nutrients we have in the 5 different products, and if they use the protein first thing in the morning, that they seem to have less of the desire, less of the addiction pathways for carbohydrates. But there are some people who they are so addicted to the carbohydrates that the intestinal flora is so overrun by those bacteria that literally pollute the system and desiring more and more, that we needed some additional help. And that's where we see the Carb Control is really supercharging these people through the Direction Lean. But even more importantly, what I've noticed is that when the people, even the ones that have really good results with the Direction Lean program, not going after carbs, they're able to stabilize their blood sugars and the desires aren't there, when they transition off the Direction Lean program and onto the 24 Brain products, since they don't have those additional nutrients, some of those carb cravings come back. Because for some people, they can get over their carb addiction in a few weeks, and other people, it might take several months. And so as they're transitioning off of the Direction Lean nutrients and onto the 24 Brain nutrients, This carb control product is really going to help people get through those additional months that they need that support for. And so what I've done is I've looked at some of the testimonials that we've had from our members as they went through the clinical trial, so to speak, that we were doing on the product. And I just wanted to read a couple paragraphs of a few of them to give you an idea of some of the things people are saying that have used the product for that. So with that being said, one of our members wrote us a note saying that she usually has a very hard struggle with carbs in the afternoon to the evening. So obviously at that point when her system's starting to go through that process of shifting over from daytime metabolism to the evening or nighttime metabolism, she started having the cravings for those carbs. After the second week, I began to have full control over these cravings. I was able to get into a better routine with food choices and felt more in control. I felt good from the cleansing effect. When in a situation where I wanted to or had to eat carbs and sugars, I was able to taste something and take a bite without wanting more. So for this member, she was able to actually make the right choice. So the Carb Control actually allowed her to have the ability, like we're saying, to follow the design, follow how her body really wanted to be fed. Another member stated, while taking Carb Control, I did not obsess about carbs. They weren't constantly on my mind. I wasn't craving them all the time, especially when I was stressed out. It was also easier for me just to say no. And the best part was I didn't feel deprived. I didn't feel like not eating carbs was a punishment. I could also have just a bite of something and then pass it up and not feel the impulse to finish every single last crumb. For the first time, carbs weren't controlling my life. So we see that our members are definitely going through a process of allowing their body to function correctly. Here's another member. So the Carb Control product helped curb my cravings and get me past devouring every carb in sight when I was stressed out or needed comfort food. While using the Carb Control product, carbs didn't control me. I was able to make smart decisions about my eating choices and pass over carb-laden foods. Great product. We see a common thread as we looked at our testimonials from our members. And I also noticed, too, with my patients that were on the clinical trial program, that they just were happier. Their overall demeanor, their sense of well-being, they seem to feel better about life, better about themselves. They literally were going through a process of allowing their body to work within the design and use the food that they had. And this last one I wanted to pull out was one of our members, and she wrote a little bit longer testimonial, so I wanted to save this one for last. She says, overall, she was on a trip and she had to obviously eat out more. So she said, overall, I did pretty good on the trip. There were times I had to eat what we had because it was too expensive to buy separate from everyone else while we were preparing for a hurricane. The lesson I learned is I should have spent the money because I realized how much better I felt without the breads and other carbs. Once in a great while, I do okay, but not something I want to do or eat regularly. I like how I feel when I eat. I will go back to what I have said before. It may taste good and satisfy cravings, but what I feel afterward for the next few days isn't worth it. Even though it was kind of difficult in food choices, I did have to eat different. I didn't gain any weight back that I had lost. I am so happy about it. In the past, I would have gained 5 to 10 pounds easily the same way without the products. Thank you, directionH, for creating a product that really works. I love the Control product, and I'm so thankful to have it in my life. I cannot imagine my life without this product. She was actually on a cruise and eating everything that she could, but with the Carb Control product, she was actually able to get over a lot of the temptation. Even though she was eating more, she didn't have to indulge to the point of excess. And so as we really look at the overall benefit of Carb Control, my feeling is it's really going to help our members take that next step in their life, allow them to get to the point where they can follow the way their body was designed to work and function, and allow them to be happy about it, and allow them to be able to engage in their environment. And when they're out having something, it's not that they have to eat the whole pie. They might want to have a piece of pie. They might want to have whatever they're going to have with their friends when they're out, but it's not going to control them. They are taking control of their life. They're in control of the carbs. They can make the choice that they feel is appropriate. So Dr. Wilson, are there any other last-minute things you'd like to bring up, or final thoughts on that?
Well, just to clarify also, to help people understand that this is not a forever product. This is the transitional product. This is a transition until your system gets reprogrammed to be able to tell you what it really wants and how it really feels about eating carbohydrates. As we go forward with improving our health, our system communicates to us. It's a form of body language that your body will talk to you. This is a transition product. This will allow your system to experience a settledness as you're changing your programs, as you're moving towards a better reality for your chemistry, for your health.
Well, I think that's a good point, Dr. Wilson. When we talk about it and look at even our Direction Lean program, it's not something that is designed forever. Our most of our products, like the Direction Lean program or now the Carb Control program, are working with a design to allow people to get their metabolism, get their body back into utilizing the fats and proteins for energy and control so that your body doesn't have those quick burns. I know in the Midwest it's been pretty cold, and a lot of people have fireplaces. And so people can relate to when you build a fire for heat in the house, you don't use light wood. You don't use birch. You don't use woods that are going to burn fast because the fire will burn hot, but it burns hot and goes out. They're going to use hardwoods. They're going to use the oaks and the walnuts that are going to burn for hours and hours because it will give them that heat. They can stoke the fire with the hardwood at night when they go to bed, and they'll still be burning in the morning. When we eat our foods, when we eat good proteins and fats in our diet and the good vegetables, it burns all day. It energizes our body for the long term. When we have the starches and the sugars, it's like lighting a match and poof, it's gone. And so what we're doing with our Direction Lean, what we're doing with the Carb Control, are allowing people the time they need to literally reprogram their neurological connections, their brain connections, their metabolisms, the way the body works for the long haul. And when they come out on the other side, their body's working correctly, then the foods they eat will give them the positive feedback that that's what's working. And when they eat the foods that are not appropriate for the design to function correctly, they'll take notice of that. And like you're saying, their body will tell them, you don't need that and you don't want that. So that pleasure-reward loop that they have in their brain is being reprogrammed to the good foods that the body was designed to utilize for energy, not the foods that are cheap, inexpensive, and burn like paper.
Well said. Well said. That's exactly right.
So with that, Dr. Wilson, thank you very much. I really think this has been a great call. And we look forward to, again, the second Saturday of February for our next call. So watch your emails for that, and we'll pick a topic. That will be February 14th, which is going to be Valentine's Day. So I'm sure we'll have to have a special call for Valentine's. And make sure also, if you have any questions or anything, any topic that you really want more in-depth information on, please email us at info@directionh.org. Again, that's info@directionh.org, and we'll make sure that we do the research and come up with all the answers for you. Dr. Wilson, thank you for taking your time on this Saturday morning, and look forward to our next call.
Thank you, Dr. Mars. Good day, everyone.